Colin had a problem and a microphone to spare. Thomas took it up and so the podcast went to air. For weeks and months they trolled through every single DVD. They've unwrapped all the ones they can and now they're cellulose free. Now they're cellulose free.
Hello dear listener and welcome to Cellulose Free. My name is Colin and with me as always is my fellow film watcher, compadre and son, Thomas.
Hi, hello.
I didn't think I was going to get that out then. I didn't take enough of a breath. All that being said, whilst I hyperventilate over here, what you been up to?
I went to Mona.
You did. For our dear listener who does not live in Tasmania, can you explain what Mona is?
Mona is the Museum of Old and New Art, run by eccentric professional gambler David Walsh. And it has a bunch of old and new art in it. Yes.
This place is basically built into the side of a coastal point, a hilly coastal point, and sort of rammed into the side of it with large amounts of explosions and money.
Yes.
Now, you said when you went in there you were expecting it to be bigger.
It is still quite large.
Yeah.
But I did think it would be bigger than it was.
Yeah. Externally it looks massive. But I think there's a large amount of space that doesn't have anything in it. So there are very high ceilings and walls of sandstone, you know, because it's just been chipped out of the side of this hill. Yeah.
The bottom floor is quite spacious, and then you move up, and on the next floor, some of it isn't there, because it's overlooking the floor below.
Yes.
And then a floor higher, yet more isn't there.
Yeah.
Because it's overlooking what's below.
So a lot of it is the cavern itself, and I find that very, very impressive. Especially considering how sceptical I was of the whole deal. It is, as a certain TV architect type person would say, it has settled into its environment surprisingly well, all things considered. Yes, so what did you think of Mona?
It was interesting. What surprised me is that I felt like I'd seen some of it before, and I had seen some of it before, because, you know, you've seen Snake.
Yes.
There's footage of Snake, you've seen Snake.
Mm-hmm.
And Fat Car, you've seen photos of Fat Car. Once you've seen photos of Fat Car, you've basically got the joke.
Yes.
Wasn't expecting there to be just a Mack truck just stowed in a corridor.
Yes.
On the bottom floor, deep underground.
It is a very quirky place. His taste in art is quite esoteric, I think is the word I'm looking for.
I missed out on a couple of things because I wasn't willing to wait in line, because there's more lines than usual.
Yes.
These days.
Yes, for this place to be open, they very strictly following guidelines as far as how many people in spaces and what have you.
Tasmanians are allowed to get in free, but you need to book ahead and make a deposit because they want to make sure that they're actually going to get someone in.
Ah, I didn't realise that a deposit was required.
And I'm still waiting on getting information on getting that deposit back, but...
Right. Huh. Yes, that would be nice.
Yes, it would.
It's actually been invested in a stack of chips that he uses in his gambling den out the back. Anyway.
Yeah. And then about an hour later, well before I was expecting to be done, I was done, and I worked my way back up the stairs, and just at the entrance to Mona, there is a sort of AstroTurf tennis court. And on that tennis court, as I left the building, were 4 people with brass instruments playing brass instrument tennis.
Right.
As in, playing it at each other.
Aha.
To simulate hitting the ball.
Did this installation have a name?
No idea. It seemed
enough.
pretty impromptu, to be honest.
Right, yes. But to mix my sporting metaphors, par for the course.
Mm.
Yes.
And then I went up to the lawns, and, well, it was Mona Foma weekend, so there was a band doing their sound checks and doing a bit of practice. Had a Valhalla ice cream, and I was going to wait around to see if there might be some hot chips, but at that time it was 3:30, and a sign just then went up saying, "We will be opening at 5.
Right.
So, what I did instead was I left, and I sat at the bus stop, and it turns out that I had just missed the bus, so I started walking in the direction that the buses would be going.
Yes.
Might as well get in some exercise. And then, instead of turning right and going under the road,
Yes.
in order to keep following where the buses were going along, I managed to not do that. And so eventually...
This is news for me.
When I got to an overpass, and I looked, and I couldn't see a bus stop in either direction, I turned around and went back to the bus stop.
Good grief. Well, you got your exercise, and you did, as far as I'm aware, get home.
Yes. My point is, I'm not walking all the way from Berrydale to... not even Glenorchy. That's just too much of an ask.
Oh, you poor soul. Yes. So that was your highlight. I thought you were instantly going to say, well, my highlight of the week was having a bonding moment with my father, cleaning the insides of my PC.
That wasn't really a highlight.
Oh, I thought it was special.
It
It
was a bit
bonding,
fiddly.
It was a bonding moment, Thomas.
It was a bit fiddly, and it took too long, and...
But was it worth it?
I guess...
It's certainly quieter than it was. And I think we removed about half a kilo of dust from the inside of it. So, yeah. So that's my highlight of the week. That is what I'm sharing with you. I got to bond with my oldest son.
Are you just saying that because you've done basically nothing else?
No. It's more to do with the fact that we're now at 10 minutes. And
yes.
we have a film to watch.
We do.
We do indeed. What is it that we are watching?
We are watching the Disney film Treasure Planet.
We are the 2002, I think it was. I don't know whether you'll find a date on the DVD cover. Disney is a bit weird with dates.
Copyright Disney.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Okay. What's bizarre is that I did drag the disc out, but we're actually going to watch it on Disney Plus. But there was a reason for that. I just want to. It's so that you can read the plot synopsis off the back of the case, but it's also to mention that there are surprisingly large number of extra features, which is a bit weird for Disney.
I don't know. This feels like about the sort of time where they were just sort of pumping out special features.
Yeah. They sort of dip, and yeah. Yes, so we're watching the 2002, I think, version of Treasure Island with a sci-fi twist. Thomas, would you be so kind as to read the plot synopsis off the back for those of you who are unaware of the plot to Treasure Island? It goes a bit skew-if.
Okay.
Yes.
Counter offer. I read the one sentence that's across the room from me.
Okay, well, counter offer. You can do that if you go and grab the Xbox controller, so that we can bring it out of. It's gone into dim mode, and we also need to be able to play. But yes, you can certainly read the one sentence plot synopsis from Disney Plus. Take it away.
A secret map inspires a thrilling treasure hunt across the universe as young Jim Hawkins and John Silver, the ship's cyborg cook, set off in search of their destiny.
On BBC Two. That's what it sounded like. One of those.
And over on BBC Four.
Yes.
Probably something informative.
Indeed. But not tonight. We are watching A Treasure Planet from Disney's archives. And Thomas is going to hit the play button. We're going to watch it. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Turn to side B.
There is no side B on the internet. You mongrel.
When has lack of sides stopped me before?
Indeed. Press play, would you?
You hit stop first.
Okay, I'll hit stop first. I'm going to straight out say it. I like that film.
It is a pretty good film, isn't it?
Oh, it's difficult to separate my mind from this and the other. Actually, I've got to be careful here. I was going to say the other Disney adaptation of Treasure Island, because there was another, the original Disney Treasure Island, but I am thinking of Muppet Treasure Island, which I also quite dearly love. So it's hard to not make comparisons there, so I won't. Interestingly, I believe it was the original Disney Treasure Island that has everyone going "arr" for pirates, because no one knows how pirates talked, but the guy who played Long John Silver in the Disney Treasure Island got that happening, apparently.
And so, like many things, piratical stereotypes are a corporate invention.
Indeed, yes. But back to this. Speaking of corporations and what have you, it's just so. its heart is completely in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think Robert Louis Stevenson would be offended by it. I think it's an interesting revamp of the story, and the whole. It's not even steampunk aesthetic. It's another thing again. A swashbuckle punk, maybe. Yeah, I just really like it. It works for me. Some people think it's silly, I believe, but it works for me. And the way that they continued that on through the entire film, the soundtrack, it had modern elements to it, but it also had motifs that would not have been out of place in a straight adaptation either. So, yeah, music's really good.
Yep.
The 2 songs,
Yep.
good. And it wasn't a musical.
No.
Which sort of brings us, I guess, around, unless I'm doing this prematurely, to possibly why it flopped so terribly.
There's a number of reasons
Yep.
to go into about why Treasure Planet did not do as well as it could have, or rightfully should have. Some of it is Disney shooting themselves in the foot.
Yep.
And releasing it at a time when other films were going on.
You got
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Yep.
Die Another Day.
Yep.
The Santa Claus 2.
So it was up against its own
yes.
materials. So it was not a its release date was difficult, and
and on top of that, it's not a cheap film.
It cost an absolute arm and a leg. I believe it is still the most expensive traditional animation film.
Disney had developed for Tarzan deep canvas.
Yep.
Which allowed them to put traditional animation on 3D surfaces.
Yep.
And what they decided to do for this film was to expand that concept and put traditional art onto 3D objects and spaces and everything that they could handle.
Yeah.
And it wasn't cheap.
No. And it wasn't cheap, and it absolutely flopped.
Yeah.
And look, I haven't looked at how well the previous Disney, which I believe was Atlantis in 2001.
So Lilo and Stitch, and then Atlantis.
Yep.
Which also performed well below expectations.
So, and there's a lot of similarities between this and Atlantis as far as style and concept, and it not being a musical, and it was doomed. It really was, which is a real shame. It did do exceedingly well in the DVD release, which I mentioned earlier. It's packed full of features, but I don't think that's what sold it. I think there was enough people who put off going to see it at the cinemas and then decided to buy it on DVD or VHS. It did well in both, from what I can tell. But it's now on Disney Plus, and look, it certainly has its flaws. But the way it develops the relationship between Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver is just wonderful. It works and it is believable and just and
with very few exceptions, that deep canvas tech does work. It works wonderfully.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions.
Yep. Well, it was cutting edge stuff at the time, and it still looks wonderful. I still have a grin on my face, and that's to do with a whole heap of just the only thing that still slightly grates with me, and I was dreading it, watching it after having not seen it for a very long time. There is a character who comes in late in the story that has always grated on me slightly and has felt slightly unnecessary. But he has warmed.
What is it with Disney in this sort of era, and thinking that you need 2 comic relief characters?
I know. Yeah. Which, again, when I first saw this, the first comic relief character, I really, but then I grew to accept. But the second one that came in a lot later on and was only there briefly, not so much. He and I don't know what it is about the 2 comic relief characters with Disney. It just, but he didn't quite grate as much this time around.
I watched a video essay a couple of years back now on just going into all the reasons that
I think I've seen that.
Yes.
And I believe he's actually a fan of it.
Yes. Yes. And I will make sure that link gets to you, and we can probably put that in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll pop that in the show notes. But I really do heartily recommend watching this, and then checking out the. Now I cannot remember whether he made any connection to the film that has very familiar motifs throughout Titan AE, which Don Bluth, who's famous for a number of... He broke off from Disney and started doing his own things, but he was called in late in the game of the production of Titan AE and tried to pull it all together, which he did to reasonable extent. I've got a soft spot for that film too, but the similarities between that and Treasure Planet are quite numerous, and numerous on a technical side as well. They tried far less successfully, in my opinion, marrying 2D and 3D animation, but so that was Treasure Planet.
That was Treasure Planet.
Do you have anything else you wish to say about that?
No.
I do like how they threw some slightly more adult concepts into it on occasion that gave the adults a giggle throughout. But good family film.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favour. Let's move on.
The following segment has no title. Please keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times.
We did have a few guesses as to what movie I was alluding to.
Yes.
as to the film that has the same sort of vibe as Doctor Strangelove, but a more serious, a non-comedic. I had a few guesses there.
Both from Jeff.
Both from Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. Both were wrong. So I'm going to add an extra hint that I have since found out that may help you. It'll make your Googling easier. It was made basically at the same time as Doctor Strangelove, and Stanley Kubrick caught wind of the fact that this was happening.
Yes.
And caught wind of the fact that this film was being made based on a book that... it's really convoluted.
Yes.
Anyway, but well worth Googling Stanley Kubrick and suing... and Doctor Strangelove should get you on. Okay, so he attempted to, or threatened to sue the person who was making this film that had a number of plot similarities, but they finally came to an agreement that they could go ahead with it as long as it wasn't released until a year after Doctor Strangelove.
Yes.
So, yeah, an interesting story, well worth checking out if you're intrigued. But now, who is going to be first to follow that paper trail and guess which film that is?
Get in touch with us.
Yes, and it has actually made me more interested in, because I don't think you have seen it.
I haven't, no.
So we might add that, force that into the equation a little earlier, so Doctor Strangelove is still fresh in your mind, for good or for bad. But that is not what we're watching next week. We're about to find out what we're watching next week in our next segment.
Pick a film for next week so we can go to bed. Okay, so it's my turn.
It is your turn.
Even if it wasn't my turn,
you would demand it.
The thing that would be coming next would be coming next.
It would.
And
we're forced into it.
And I am not going to say what it is.
That is shocking.
What I will say is that you may be finding us here at a different time next week.
A very specifically different time.
Yes.
Next week. Thank you, because it's another thing that I was going to discuss with you, but I like your thinking. Be prepared to be surprised next week.
Or be prepared to be proven exactly right.
Indeed. When we fill your ears with nonsense next week. We hope you can join us. And until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye. You have been listening to Cellulose Free. Your hosts were Colin, who produces and edits the show, and Thomas, who makes the artwork and music. Cellulose Free is recorded in the Deranged Cat Studios in scenic Tasmania, Australia. We keep track of our extensive physical media collection through My Movies, which we highly recommend. You can find links to that, as well as other places you can find us in the show notes. Cellulose Free is a Hi Hello production.
Good family film.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favour. Let's move on.
Do we know what we're doing with this segment yet?
No, we don't. So let's move on.
No communication over the week.
No.
Nothing.
No. Yes. Oh no, hang on. Let's not move on. Let's go back a bit. No, but we did have a few guesses as to